Speak No Evil is directed by James Watkins and stars James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, and among others. And in this story, it deals with an American family that ends up going to stay with James McAvoy and his family at this farmhouse. And, well, if you've seen from the trailers, things aren't quite as they seem because you start to notice that James McAvoy's character is starting to get a little, like, out there as far as his behavior and stuff and everything, and it starts to unravel some other stuff that I won't get into spoilers. But essentially, it becomes them having to try to get away from them and everything. And I'll leave it there. Here's a little backstory. Now, this movie is a remake of a Danish movie that came out a couple years ago that I haven't seen, but I heard a lot of good things about it. And this is one of those kind of movies I went in like very going in fresh because I had a feeling that if I was going to watch the original, I'd kind of get spoiled into seeing the new one. That's kind of how I felt with the recent Dune movies. Is that if I see the original, it kind of takes the fun out of it of going in not knowing how the plot goes to be in the newer versions. So it's kind of a fun experiment that I like to do by watching the current ones that come out and then go back and watch the originals to kind of see how they were if I hadn't seen them before and stuff. And so going to this one, it got me interested, but I was also, you know, hoping that this was also going to be one of those return to forms for Blumhouse because this has been a pretty bad year as far as horror films for them, especially with Night Swim and Imaginary, and I also heard that Afraid movie that also sucked that I haven't seen, but I heard wasn't that good either. So going into this one of the things that got me really interested the most is seeing James McAvoy playing a very crazy, unhinged kind of a guy like he was in Split and stuff. And so that was really the biggest thing for me. And on top of the whole like kind of secluded area and stuff like that, with it being in, I believe it's in, you know, taking place at this farmhouse and stuff. So they got me there. And then after upon seeing the film, I can say that I was actually quite surprised by this one. It's definitely, I thought it was really good. It may not be really great, and I can't really compare it to the original because I haven't seen the original, but I hear it's really good. But this is one of those movies that I kind of feel like it makes kind of a good double feature with stuff like Unhinged or even Split on that kind of like unhinged type of performance that you see on the caliber that James McAvoy can bring to that, or how Russell Crowe brings in Unhinged, you know. And so to get my pros out of the way, the cast in this were all great. James McAvoy really steals the show in this. He's definitely, you know, goes for it on not only being disturbing as fuck, but just the way that he's able to kind of come across kind of like very nicely in some scenes. And in a way, too, he was kind of reminding me of points, kind of remind me in some instances of Annie Wilkes or Kathy Bates' performance in Misery. In a way where the character comes across as like very kind of nice and very, you know, inviting and everything, but then you push their buttons and it pretty much snaps just like that. So I really like how they go back and forth with his personality in this, and along with how he's trying to basically, you know, try to bring everything together with his family and stuff, and just the little things that kind of make him tick and stuff like that. You know, he's about to go and he's about to go and you know, he's about to have that anger with him, you know. So he was great, and then it was also great seeing Mackenzie Davis. I thought she was great as well, playing as the wife, and also the Scoop McNairy, who I've become an avid fan of in a lot of other films. I thought he was great, and just the way that the movie is set in this kind of very isolated farmhouse location really puts you in the right kind of atmosphere and stuff, and it definitely had some vibes very similar to, well, in that kind of feeling of movies like Get Out or Misery and stuff like that, where basically when you're in a more like secluded area where there's chances that happen where you can, that there's basically like limited area where you can't really go anywhere and stuff. And so I do appreciate, I really enjoyed the cinematography in this and the way that it puts you in that kind of like claustrophobic type of state. And then on top of that, I really got to appreciate the way the movie builds the tension, where just from the beginning, when we kind of get already introduced to the family and stuff, there's something just not quite there with James McAvoy's character and his family and everything, but it doesn't. But as you start to get online and start to see more as it unfolds in the third act, especially, you see that shit really goes down, and it really had me on the edge. And the third act especially is really like one of those where it plays it into scenes where it's very silent in parts. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but just the way that the direction, the tension builds upon, it had me not only on the edge of my seat, but it was really curious as to how's it going, and just the way it plays out and everything. And then on top of that, I got to really appreciate the score in this. It was very haunting, and I also like how there's also a reveal in this that I won't go into spoilers with, but let's just say that it had something that I didn't expect necessarily, because the movie does kind of have that kind of predictability, like you already know where it's going as it goes along, but there's a reveal they have that actually got me really that really caught me off guard, that I appreciated the movie was really sticking with. And And it has a really good payoff at the end with it too that I appreciated. And so there's that. Now if I had to get into some of my cons, we'll have to say that there are instances where the characters can pretty much kind of like basically leave at any time they have opportunities to leave and stuff after they kind of notice some stuff that seems out of the ordinary at times, but they don't really take the opportunity to do it. And that also falls into the characterization of the husband in this, because I thought, even though I liked Scoot McNairy's performance, I did feel like he wasn't really given much of it, because he felt very like he wasn't really compelling enough to really stand up for himself a lot. And I think that was really lack of characterization with this character and a lack of the writing they really give to him, because he's always following orders of what people tell him and stuff, instead of like coming up with his own, coming up with his own decision and stuff. And I really felt like that really bugged me at times. And on top of that, there's also a couple instances where even McAvoy's character kind of doesn't pick up on certain things that happen at times, and I'll leave it there because it's crucial stuff that kind of falls into later with the movie. But it just also made me wonder, like, okay, how did he really not notice that or something like that? Now it just has to do with how it falls into the third act. And so there was that, and then on top of that, there's also a reveal that happened, which I really enjoyed, but it also kind of questions Elijah Tivity. And they kind of lead into some stuff that's implied about what's going on and everything, but we don't really get to fully know the whole details about it, if that makes sense, because it's really hard to describe without going to spoilers. But other than that, though, I still had a really good time with this movie, and while there are some dumb choices that happen here and there and typical stuff that you kind of see and you predict how the movie is going to play out and everything, it still works in its own regard, because it kept me on the edge, and I was still very, I was feeling disturbed by a lot of stuff that was happening. A lot of the tension and everything just really kept me going. And with that, I'm going to give the film a compelling grade on the Film Phreeks meter. So, for those of you who have also seen Speak No Evil, and also the original film that this was a remake of, and also seen the original film, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.